Unpleasant sounds to me are a physiological reaction to something. They're not contextual at all. So it hurts my ears, it makes my blood pressure rise, it makes my shoulders tense. There's things about unpleasant sounds that you cannot sort of intellectualize or turn into an emotional reaction to something. They are just physical reactions. Everyone reacts to nails on a chalkboard in the same way. I don't know anybody who thinks that nails on a chalkboard is a good sound. So that can't possibly be connected to memory. It's not like at some point in my life I had a bad nails on a chalkboard experience.
You take a piece of paper and you take your nails along it and crease it. I know someone who will actually be physically sick if they hear that sound. It was an invention to keep kind of teenagers off of property. It's called the mosquito, and it's a really, really high-pitched sound that only people under the age of like 25 or something can hear. And it gets to a point where like it really, really bothers you, so you leave. But you hear it, and like me when I bike by, it's just like 5 seconds. It's just like, oh my god, it's harassment. It's painful.
Pleasing sounds fit into so many different places. Like there's nature sounds that are pleasing that like takes you out of the sterile world of where you are. Certain music will contextualize you to a certain place. Like this is the first time I heard this piece of music, I was doing this, or the first time I heard this song, I was in love with someone.
To remember a time, I remember the music that I listened to then. There's this song by U2 called Vertigo. I used to listen to it. There was a winter where it was really, really snowy. It was a really beautiful winter, and I would listen to that song a lot. I listened to it again like in the summer, and I was like, man, my brain thought of me walking up a street, going to my old school, like a video memory. I remember like what I was wearing, I remember what side of the street I was on, I had my hands in my pocket, like I remember it perfectly, and I think that's just because of that song.
People spend a great deal of time trying to figure out how we manipulate emotions with music. Soundtracks are the best example. There's this great Harry Met Sally trailer which makes Harry Met Sally, turns it into a horror movie, and it's all just these like suspenseful strings in the background and the boom 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 boom. And it's just clips from Harry Met Sally, but they take just the right clips that make it sound like he's stalking her. And it's a great example of how soundtracks completely change the context of what you're dealing with.
If you're walking through a forest, you hear birds or something, that generally makes me happy because I feel like I'm a part of nature or whatever. Written sound is often trying to replicate those emotions. And that's what neuromusicology is, I think, is why people, or how people can replicate emotions through music to the brain.
I have spent a great deal of time doing sound design for theater, and when I do it, I don't compose for it, I use found sounds to create an atmosphere. Like, I think it makes it more natural and less artificial. There's always something going on in the background of the soundscape of our lives. When you hear motors and sirens and horns, then you're in the city. Of course you hear birds in the city, but when you hear birds in isolation without a visual to connect them to, then you think you're in the country. The soundscape of our lives is so specific. If you were to say, have a shot of downtown busy trafficy thing and then just have birds in the background, and how that would be just so jarring to people because they're so not used to that visual mixed with that sound. And that would really sort of pinpoint how prolific and everyday sound is in our lives. I think they probably would laugh because it would be something unusual and unexpected.
You can't, being human, hear silence. You can still hear your heart beating. You can still hear yourself breathing. And it just gets louder, unless you go to space or whatever where there isn't any sound. Like, I can't even imagine that. No sound. I think it'd be scary.